Alright, no sense in keeping the people waiting. Hello there, Enviro Boy, this is my channel. And I swear, for a second I thought Fozzie Bear had ended up in my chat because of all of this punnery that's happening. And then of course, Nightbot has to come in and try and ruin the fun, as is tradition. But I like that one. Little harsh on orcs, but no, that's fair. I like that one. Welcome everyone to our Friday stream. We are going to do a little bit of writing as we do. I have a fuzzy editor with me. She's being a little shy right now, but she wanted to participate. So there's our daily dose of cat, which, if I am to understand the rules of the internet properly, means that now that I have provided that, I will be much more popular and everyone will like me better. And when I say that, what I mean is people will come for the cat and ignore me, but that's understandable. But yeah, there we go. So we're here today to do some writing. Did I have coffee today? I have coffee every day, man. I drink a whole pot of coffee every day, to the point where most people would think I have a problem. But we are here. I don't know about you guys, but I'm excited about the weekend. But even more than that, I'm excited that I get to sit here and stream for a little bit to cruise into the weekend. So let's go ahead and scooch ourselves over here. There we go. So here we are. So today we are going to work a little bit on our campaign, which is going to be nice. We haven't worked on it since Monday here, but we've been making really good progress on the campaign. We're getting pretty close to finishing up the sort of this chapter that we've been working on with the game. So I'm pretty excited about finishing that up because I've got some cool ideas for our next chapter coming up here. But we gotta make sure we finish what we're working on in the first place before we get to that. So we're gonna work on that today. I am gonna just go ahead and do my usual quick rundown of what we've written so far, so that way we can, if there's anyone who's just kind of joining for the first time, you know, like on the VODs on YouTube or something like that, they can kind of get the gist of what it is rather than having to go back and filter through, like, you know, hundreds of hours of VOD to get there. I was looking at it. I've got somewhere around like 400 hours of content on my YouTube channel. Oh, see you, kitty. We got excited about a squirrel, so we have to go check that out, naturally. But yeah, we'll just give a quick rundown of everything, and then we can dive into it. So we're working on a big-ish campaign. It's not the biggest campaign, but it's pretty sizable. A campaign that will run a group of roughly 5 players in 5th edition D&D from levels 1 to 10 is the ultimate goal, or at least that's what it's intended to do. Whether they actually do that or not sort of depends on how diligently they murder everything that we provide for them to kill. But that's the scope of the campaign we're working on. It's a homebrew campaign that takes place in my homebrew world here. I've got the map of the world up. It's called the world is called Zaoria, and it is it's a post-apocalyptic world where the fabric of reality had kind of been ripped apart just a little bit, so that all of the different realms, the ethereal planes, the elementals, all of that kind of stuff, outer, inner, as well as the mortal plane or the material plane, whichever you prefer to call it, were all kind of torn apart and kind of intermingled to a certain degree, and that resulted in a whole lot of displaced magical beings ending up in the mortal plane and vice versa, as well as all kinds of just sort of existing tears in reality, causing this massive influx of magical radiation to sort of be wreaking havoc in this world. And it resulted in pretty much everyone either dying or seeking refuge in one of a handful of fortified cities that you can see around here, where like that these few cities were sort of the perfect blend of being decently far away from all of the different major large rips in between the plains, as well as being fortified enough and being large enough that they had the resources to defend against all the horrible, nasty monsters that sort of showed up. So that's the nature of the world that we're in. And you can see one of the important premises for this campaign is that there's kind of one singular trade route that runs from city to city. It's this one major highway. And basically, cities can only interact with one another, assuming they're in some way, shape, or form right next to each other along the lines of this road. That's kind of the extent of it all. That's an important note, because this world takes place, like all of the stories and campaigns that I write in this take place a couple thousand years after the initial event called the Unhinging took place, where all of this went crazy. And as time has passed, a lot of the tears have sort of naturally started to close up. Things are slowly starting to return to a semblance of normalcy, and because of that, the various cities in the world are starting to try to reclaim or re-spread out beyond these cities. Hey, Live and Let's Die, how's it going? I'm doing well. Hopefully you are doing well as well. Thanks for joining us here today. But yeah, so that's the basic concept, is these cities are starting to try and reclaim a lot of the world, and that leads us into sort of how our campaign gets started. Our campaign takes place within this hex right here, and the basic starting point is that the city of Fosvik up here is working on a project, a very long-form project of trying to map out and construct a new trade highway that, rather than winding all the way around, can go straight down to the city of Muffafetting down here. And our players are part of this sort of initiative. They're part of the crew that's setting out to do all of this. And that brings us, and the process has kind of made it to about this point when we fall into the beginning of our campaign. So I'll bring us into the region map here. So this is sort of that region where everything in this campaign takes place. We can see this is as far as the pathfinding effort has made it, and that's where the campaign opens up, where it turns out that all of these plains that they're kind of marching their way through these plains are the domain of a dragon that isn't super stoked about humanoids coming into his territory. So like he kind of comes in and is all like, "Oi, don't do that. I don't want you here." And then the humanoids are like, "But we're trying to like just get a trade route so we can live." And so we'll have some banter back and forth that the players can participate in, and depending on how they do go about things, hopefully it's not too antagonistic. But I suppose that depends on the group of players. But basically the upshot of all of this is going to be that the dragon's like, "Okay, well, tell you what, I'll cut you a deal. There's this Hall of Wisdom that I'm trying to get into. It has some magical artifacts that I'm interested in, but it's locked up tight. The magic stops me from getting in there, and there's a bunch of keys that you need to be able to unlock the doors and get in there. If you can find those keys for me, in exchange, I'll let you build your little road, and you guys can go about your stupid, silly humanoid things while I do super awesome, rad dragon things." And so our players, who will presumably be good players that will willingly accept the call to adventure, will take on this quest and begin searching for the 4 keys to gain access to the Hall of Wisdom. The first key is up in the mountaintops among all of the giant tribes up here. We've already kind of worked through and mapped all of that stuff out. So they go up there, eventually find that key, return to their sort of city of Novotrkladny right here. And then the second key they find out after doing a little bit of research and presumably recruiting a few people in the city to help them do some research. At the very least, we provide them the ability to do that. If players take advantage of that, it's kind of up to them. But the sort of the upshot of that is they will find out that the second key was last known to be with the dwarves down in the city of Kagdaral, which is now presumably abandoned because of the unhinging and all the horrible monsters driving the dwarves out. Players get down there, find that Duragar have kind of come into being and now occupy that space. They can handle that however they choose. They may choose to get violent. They may choose to be sneaky. They may choose to be diplomatic. Kind of up to them. Regardless, they'll find out that the next key that they're after is a little outside of the Dwarven city in their sort of Dwarven treasure vaults, right up here in the vaults of Kagdaral. And that's kind of what we've been working on. We've been working on their journey to the vaults, and then we, if I'm remembering properly, last time we finished with them getting to the vaults. So we're gonna write some notes about what happens when they're in the vaults, because there's going to be a few happenings, and then we're going to map out their journey back to the city so that they can eventually then return back to their main base with the second key. But that's everything up to this point, which is a decent amount. We've done a decent amount, but the thing about it is we're maybe roughly almost halfway through this campaign. It's going to be a beefy campaign, but that's how I like my campaigns. I don't mess around with none of this like 3-session nonsense. All right, if you're in one of my games, you're in it for the long haul, or you don't get a conclusion, and that's that. No, in reality, I'll make a campaign of any length that any players want. But I like making these big, giant campaigns because I like to imagine that maybe one day I'll be able to convince people to actually play a long form campaign. Yeah, I agree. That long form storytelling is much better. For me, it's just like you need time to be able to actually get invested in a premise and actually sort of create a world that is rich and eventful and meaningful. Like, it takes time to get there. You can't just get there in half a dungeon, you know. You need to build all that stuff up and build that investment. So I'm a big fan of it, and I'm very lucky that I have a group of friends that I play with that are of the same mindset. They like these long form campaigns. So you know, that's rad for me because it's like, hey, I get to make these things and then actually play them. But at any rate, that's what we've been working on here. Here is our dungeon. Let me zoom out a little bit. So we kind of finished this last stage of the tunnels. This kind of chapter that we're working on is it's their journey from the city to the vaults, as I say, and it starts off with them going through sort of abandoned parts of the city that are just like, you know, interesting, weird preservations of life pre-unhinging. It starts with like a city block, a storefront area, followed by this sort of like dwarven version of a suburb, and then it turns into some tunnels and stuff that they are going through, and that's what we've been working on. They're tunnels to get to the vaults, and that's this last section that we finished off here. And so now we got to actually talk about what happens in the vaults. Been one of the longest games that I've run and played in. You know, I think just in terms of the number of hours put into it, the game that I'm currently running for my friends is probably the longest one I've ever done. Because I've had some that lasted for over a year, but were done like when I was in grad school, and we would play, if we were lucky, once a month. We would all meet on a Saturday and play for a few hours. But the group that I'm in now, we play for about an hour and a half to 2 hours every Monday night. And we've been going for probably about 14 months now. It's been going. So that's probably the longest form, the one that I'm currently running, which is rad. It took a while to find a group that could do that, but yeah, I think that's the one. Most others I've been part of have petered out within a year. I don't think I've had any other groups that lasted a full year. Maybe one other group that I was a player in lasted a little over a year, but none of the stories were a year-long contiguous thing. It was a group that would take turns doing DMing stuff, and so it would kind of be just like a mini dungeon type of campaign that would last a handful of sessions, and then the next person would take a turn. So yeah, let's see here. Heck yeah, I'm Jenny. I agree with you. A nice long epic is so much better than doing piecewise. Like I can see breaking it up so that you can do other mini vignettes in between. but having a nice long story arc is so much more exciting. It's so much easier to sort of get invested in and care about the characters and the stuff happening in the world if you actually have time to grow attached to it. So, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's definitely a good group that I'm part of. I tell them that all the time, that they're definitely one of the best D&D groups I've ever had, and just in general, they're really good friends. I really like hanging out with them. That's why I always say too, why it's like I'm not super eager to actually end up streaming those games, because people ask about that a lot, and it's like at the very least I don't want to stream our Monday night sessions because it's just us being friends and hanging out, right? And I don't want the dynamic of that to change. We have talked about maybe doing a different project that we would turn into like a podcast or something like that, where we could just once a month have a different game that we play in and record a handful of podcast episodes worth of stuff. And we've thought about giving that a shot, but that's kind of that's just like a little egg baby idea that needs a whole lot of incubation and growth before it can hatch into an actual thing that we would actually try doing, because the fact is none of us have any idea what to do to make a podcast happen. But it's an idea we've tossed around, but we all kind of agree that our game is not one that we want to change, because it's not just a game that's really awesome and that we have fun with, but it's us as friends hanging out, and we don't, not everything in life needs to be televised. It's okay to have some things that's just you and your friends hanging out. So, as much as our world revolves around monetizing everything, I think it's an important part of the human experience to not monetize literally everything all the time. So, anyway, so this is what we've been working on. Let me pull up our notes page here. We've got to let's see, I gotta swap out of that. That's the stuff for that group that I'm running. I was working on some of their stuff earlier. But yeah, let's see here. Oh wait, what do you got here? What do you got? Yeah, absolutely, Jenny. I agree completely on every point. Scheduling is impossible, and that's like one of the things that's awesome about this group is, and I always tell people, I'm like, you don't understand. Like everyone always, whenever I bring up the idea of like, what if we just play for an hour, every Tuesday of every week or something like that, everyone's always like, oh, but I don't know about just an hour or something like that. But it's like, with online capabilities, it's not like that hour requires driving to someone's home and then all of you setting up your stuff. We can all play online, and that's what we do. And I always tell people it's so much easier to get a lot of campaign in if you play for an hour or two once per week and just have that part of your weekly schedule, because then you're not going to cancel, because that's your weekly schedule, right? That, like for us, we know Monday nights are D&D unless something really important happens. So like, this coming Monday is Valentine's Day. A lot of us have stuff going on Valentine's Day, so we're not going to play this week. Sometimes other important things come up. But for the most part, Monday night is D&D night, so we don't schedule any other things. So people rarely have to cancel. We always know what's going to happen, and we've already dedicated the time to it. And so it's just so much easier, because everyone always wants to be like, oh, but it's so much more fun to do just like a big giant Saturday. It's like, yeah, but if we're not going to be committed to doing that at least every other week, we'll get a whole lot less going on, because everyone wants to do everything on Saturday. And it becomes difficult to sacrifice every Saturday, so then it turns into, we start off thinking like, oh, well, we'll do every other Saturday. And then people have to cancel this one Saturday. So it's like, okay, well, it becomes once a month. But then, oh, shoot, just this big family thing just happened, and so now we have to do it, do a different time. And it just keeps snowballing until it's been 3 months since the last time you've played. So, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like, short times, as long as it's at least an hour and everyone is punctual and logging on, and again, this, like, it does kind of hinge upon either you all being roommates or next door neighbors, so that you're just like walking a block down the street, right? There's not an actual commute time associated with it, or you're playing online. Granted, that's an important part, but at that point, you can if you just play for an hour and you do that every week, that's 4 hours of play, 4 to 5 hours of play per month, compared to trying to get everyone together one Saturday to play for like 4 hours. So it just, yeah, it becomes much better. It becomes much better. Yeah, and it's easier to let people go. But the other flip side of it is, if you're playing weekly, it's not as upsetting to say like, oh well, we'd rather have everyone here, so let's just skip this week, because we already know that next week it's going to happen. As long as it doesn't become a habit to skip, it's pretty okay to do that. So anyway, I could talk about that for ages, and I think all of you guys have the right of it. It's a better approach to things that for some reason sounds more daunting to people to play weekly, but it really is the better approach if you want to have a consistent game going. And I definitely consider myself extremely fortunate that I have found a group of friends that are like that dedicated to hanging out with each other and playing D&D together. I mean, even if we didn't do D&D, the fact that I've got a group of friends that we all have a good time, and we all have a good time and we want to do it once per week, like that's a pretty rad thing. So that's a pretty rad concept. So anyways, here are all of the notes that we've done here. But one thing that we need to do is we need to establish what is going on in the vaults themselves. Now, this the vaults I don't have inside the vaults as part of our maps, correct? Because our final stage of this is going to be the return. Because what's going to happen is there's going to be some sort of trap or some sort of... I still haven't exactly decided how it's going to be, and this is kind of what we have to sit here and hash out today. And that's kind of what my goal for today is, to just hash out exactly what happens in the vaults. If we get started on this final stretch back, then that's just gravy. But we need to hash out exactly what happens in the vaults, because they're going for that key in there, and there's going to be some sort of event, and I haven't decided if it's going to be an intentional trap or if it's going to be just an accident waiting to happen that will in some way, shape, or form get triggered for the players. That is going to prevent them from being able to just take the same pathway through the tunnels and the abandoned city to get back to, the city of Kagdaral proper, and then eventually leave the mountains to go back to their sort of home front in Novichok-Kladny. So I need to figure that out, and I'm leaning towards there being one sort of final trap or theft prevention thing, because that's what a lot of this challenge, the challenge of this dungeon, has revolved around, is the fact that the dwarves, this was the dwarven treasure vault, right? This wasn't just, like some bank that's abandoned. Like, this is where the dwarves put all of their valuables. All of their collective dwarven wealth was in these vaults. So these are incredibly well protected against what they would have viewed as, when they were still there, when the city was inhabited, as bank robbers, but now many of them would regard as like grave robbers to a degree, right? Like they would have put security measures in place. They wouldn't have just left their stuff like, here, anyone can just kind of come in and scoop a pocket full of gold and walk out, right? Like there's prevention involved. And so with that in mind, it seems to me that there would be some sort of like final method in place for the vaults themselves to almost have a sort of sentience about them that can be recognizant of, like, oi, these aren't Kagdaralians? Maybe they're just called Kags. I don't know. These aren't people of Kagdaral. These aren't dwarves. These are imposters. They're thieves and knaves, and so it will, like, because the sort of ending concept of this that I have is that if we go back to stage 4 here, the thought that I have, so in this room right here, we've established, I'm not going to pull up the notes and read them, but we've essentially established, like, the boss battle happens here, right? But there's also like a skylight. There's an opening up to the world where, whether on purpose or on accident, there's access to above ground instead of being stuck underground. But it's like 20, 30 feet in the air in the center of this room. There's really no way to get there unless they really are determined to try and get like a grappling hook up there with the use of mage hand or something like that, right? And so the concept is that there's really just, where we'll describe it and sort of brush it off, at the time. But my thought is, if there's some sort of trap involved that can cave it in and force them to have to try and find a way out within this upper part here, i.e. force them to find a way out in this room, find a way to get up there, then that brings them to our final stage, which is a trek through the forest to eventually get back to another entrance into Kagdaral. Is sort of what I want to do. Like, there'll be, I'm going to put it right now just because I'm thinking about it. I want to put a giant hole here that represents the hole that then leads down to that opening skylight. And I'm pretty sure we've already used some holes in this one. Yeah, so we can like do that. I want it to be a bit bigger. Double that size. I think that's perfect. And if we just put that like right there, boom, there we go. So there's their way back up. And so I have to kind of come up with a something that makes sense within the lore of the world, and at least has some excusable consistency, right? Or excusable inconsistencies, right? Even if we're going to play fast and loose with what magic or what traps are capable of doing and to what scale, we have to at least offer it so that it's not like too obvious that we needed something convenient to force them to do something. I mean, it is going to be obvious because it's a game. Everything is constructed for the sake of presenting challenges to players. You know, that's, if you don't want that, don't play games. But like, and the other thing that makes it obvious is, like, if it were not obvious, like if that weren't the intended thing, we wouldn't have this whole map that's a planned route for them to get back. So it is, from like a meta standpoint, going to be obvious, but I don't want it to be obvious from a in-universe standpoint, right? Like, I don't want it to look and feel like something that people that like for some reason the dwarves themselves were like always planning on doing that. Like, I want it to be like, I guess what I'm saying is I want the effect to be. Sorry, I have to remember to keep like drinking so my voice doesn't get too parched throughout these streams. But I kind of want it to be something along the lines of, like, if it's going to happen, if it's going to be a scripted event, I want it to come across as a scripted event that was like maybe supposed to have killed the players, right? Or supposed to have really trapped them in there indefinitely, so that they have no way to get out, right? That it's, unless they were able to actively tunnel their way out, there was no way to get out. And then it turned out that there was just this hole that developed over time, over the couple thousand years of neglect that these tunnels have been going through. That's sort of the idea that I want to invoke, if I can, in telling of what in the telling of what happens here. Because the dwarves wouldn't have been that concerned about cutting off their access to their own treasure. They would just be like, all right, trade's gonna be inconvenienced for a couple for a couple days while we retunnel our way back into it. Is sort of the idea. Like, they're masters of manipulation of the earth and the mountains that they live in. So they're not concerned with a couple rock slides. But someone who's just trying to, like, you know, some elven rogue who's trying to go in and steal, you know, a jewel, the Arkenstone or whatever, like, they're probably not going to be equipped to tunnel out. And so I kind of want to find a way to make that be what happens without it being like too obvious that I need it to happen, right? Because it's the other thing. I don't want it to be like, oh, like, it only happens if this one lever is pulled. Like, how do I force the players to pull the lever, right? You know, or it's like, oh, you just conveniently stepped on this random tripwire. You know, like, I need to come up with some sort of system that makes it clear. And what I think will make the most sense is if, so they had to go through, they had to find keys, and they had to understand some sort of riddle to be able to get through our door here and get into the vaults. And what I think I want to do is have it be so that the system, like the dungeon and the vaults, are organized, and there's some magic that when they enter, the doors will automatically close themselves, and to leave, there must be like they would have to do something, and I want it to be something that they might feel like they can try and brute force their way through and or be able to lie their way past, but will like it ultimately is something that they can't succeed at, is sort of the idea that I have. So yeah, I think I have an idea. I like that. So I kind of want it to be it closes and there's perhaps a spell circle, right, like on the other side of the door, on the inside of this door, so we can actually, even on the map, let me go to let's go to magic. I think, yeah, so we've got these like little rune circles that we can use. I already kind of used one, but I'm going to use another one. Let's make this just our standard size. And I kind of want to put that right here. And so the idea, and so I'm wondering if we can do something where it's like the treasure itself, any bit of treasure that's put in there is enchanted. And so when players want to leave, they have to stand on, it's almost like a metal detector of some sort, right? And so they have to stand on the little circle here, and they have to answer a few questions honestly. And if they either lie or the honest answer is not an acceptable one, then there will be like a rumbling as parts of the tunnel are triggered to collapse. And I actually am thinking it can be sort of like it's intended that the whole thing like collapses on them and crushes anyone trying to flee. But because of how time has changed the rocks and the tunnels, because of how time has changed all of that, it doesn't succeed at completely burying it, and there's like one pathway that can kind of be dug back to this room where they are then forced to get their way up, is sort of the idea that I have. I feel like you can explain all of that and just use descriptive text enough to kind of sell that idea, is sort of what I'm thinking here. So I'm going to take us back to our notes page here, and we're going to take this, just copy that a little bit just so I don't have to go through the trouble of figuring out how to format this thing, all this stuff. And we're going to retitle this. We're going to say in the vaults, because again, this isn't part of our map, right? So most of these notes are, okay, when you're in this room, here's what you see, you know, here's what's happening, here's what can happen to the players, blah 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 blah. But I'm gonna add this extra little part here. So in the vaults, and I want to kind of describe this. So first, let's get ourselves some bullet points just so we can kind of. I always find that like bullet points make it a little bullet points with like an underlined like title or header of some sort make it a lot easier in the middle of a session to find the notes that I'm looking for. So for this one, we'll just say oops. Okay, first off, we need our standard text color, and then we'll say description here. So I do want to first offer our players a little bit of description, right? They've just gone through a whole lot of trials to get through and gain access to these vaults, including possibly having to go back if they don't find all of the keys on the way there. So we'll say as the doors open to the vaults, you find yourselves find yourselves. I was like, what did I do wrong? good strong start to the typing here today. As the doors open to the vaults, find yourselves facing one of the most remarkable sights you've ever seen. As far as you've ever been able to. Well, no, that's a little too wordy here. Let me try that again. A room larger than any other underground. I almost like the H in there. It kind of fits the dwarven writing and phonetics, doesn't it? underground. Any other, so a room larger than any other underground chamber you've ever seen expands out before you with piles upon piles of, hold up, piles upon piles of gold and gold, we'll say gold, gem, my fingers are so clumsy today, piles of gold, gems, and treasures climb from floor to ceiling. You can't hardly imagine how you could be expected to find any singular item within these vaults upon this first glance. So that's actually kind of one of our hurdles that we need to cover that I hadn't actually thought of until just this moment. If we're describing this big giant bank vault of crap, right? Well, not crap, of gold and valuables, but if we're describing this big giant bank vault, if we want to make this like, so there's always a balance to strike. Like, you don't want to worry too much about realism to the point that it halts up the game and makes it impossible to progress in a fantasy world, right? But at the same time, you want there to be a solid internal logic that works. And I don't know that it works to just say, like, yeah, there's like a room, an underground chamber longer than a mile long with piles upon piles of treasure. You spend 10 minutes and you find the key. Like, that, oddly convenient, right? Oddly convenient. So here's where I have to get a little, I might have to rein in my vision of what this chamber looks like, right? And limit how much treasure. The other option is this. Okay, so here's a different idea. Here's a different idea. It's out before you. Let's get rid of that and let's just do. We'll say, but this is no dragon's lair of treasure, where valuables are piled and strewn about with little care for what goes in any pile. This is the work of a highly cataloged and organized vaulting? That doesn't really work, does it? Because vaulting is like jumping over. So we'll just say a highly cataloged and organized vault system. We'll say rows upon rows of shelves span this chamber. Because like what I'm imagining is like there's all these like different shelves and things are just like organized and cataloged. So it's like you can go up. It's almost like being at the supermarket, right? You can go along and there's like one placard that says gold and silver coins, right? And one of them that says like ancient artworks. And then within like the ancient artworks, there's like three aisles of it, and like one of them is entirely devoted to dwarven, and then one of them is like elven and human, and one of them is like 7 other races or something like that, right? Like I'm just imagining that it's like actually organized or something, so that our players can then be all like, ooh. And it's like what I'm actually thinking about and I'm really liking about this is this can turn into like a shopping trip for our players. And this works really well with the sort of exit trap that we're going to set for them, right? So it's like we're almost daring them. We're almost daring them to get themselves in trouble with this, right? Because it's like they find this vault, right? They find this vault, and we're just like daring them. It's like, so, are you guys gonna take more than what you're intending to take? Are you guys gonna be, are you gonna be pilfering little fools? Which I suspect they're going to be, because we've established that this is an abandoned city that has been so for like 2,000 years, with the exception of the Duergar, who are. While the Duergar in my world aren't completely indiscriminately evil, they are kind of a little bit of a group of dickheads, right? They're kind of rude and generally speaking don't much care for like the players. You know, they have the option to be diplomatic about things, and there's potential for that to work. But just in general, the Duergar are kind of like our home, not yours. We do what we want. You can fudge off, right? Like that's kind of the attitude of the Duergar. And so given all of that, the players from like a moral standpoint are probably going to feel perfectly entitled to take what they want to take. I mean, we're talking about this huge chamber of rows upon rows upon rows of treasure. So I don't even think that they would be in the wrong for taking all of that. But the spell circle of the dwarves that the dwarves would have put in place as like the security system for them to get out without taking anything that doesn't belong to them, right? Like that spell circle is gonna not really give a rip about that morality. It's gonna be thinking along the lines of like, you know, like, hey, you're not dwarves, but in your pockets you've got dwarven gold. This is not acceptable. And so it will. So by putting this here, I think we're gonna do a really good job of like I say, goading our players into getting themselves in trouble. Like I think this will be perfectly effective. I think it'll be perfectly effective. Just when I think about players, and their approach, because the thing about it is too, is that circle is not going to view that key that the players are taking as something that belongs to them. Like basically what I'm thinking for that spell circle is that through some undefined magic, which I play pretty fast and loose with magic. I always describe magic in my world as not being like a discrete set of spell cards, but rather magic is just something that flows through the universe, right? And or at least through this planet. My universe is, I've got actually a fictional universe, and this world exists in part of it, and it gets kind of complicated with like magic and stuff. But point is, magic is like a force or an energy that flows in and around everything. And the concept of casting magic is less of a, oh, these are the only ways to do it, and more of a, it's kind of like cooking, right? I look at magic as kind of like cooking, where it's like there are recipes that if you follow the recipes, you will get known results. And the better you follow that recipe, the better your results will be. And that's what spells are. Spells are like recipes for how to channel and control the magic. But just like with cooking, you can also change things. You can try experimenting with different things, and that's where like the concept of alchemy comes into play, right? But it's like you can experiment with like changing the pronunciation of a word or trying different things, and you can get different results from it. So it's like if there's something that just doesn't really fit within the rules as written concept, I don't see that as a problem. One, because we're setting up a game, and sometimes you just got to do what you got to do to make sure that the game is fun, and you can hand wave it, and if people ask too many questions, you can say, like, look, we can either hash out the realism of how this goes, or you can enjoy the fact that I've given you a new challenge, and you can play the game. And two, I really think that makes the most sense as far as a world with magic goes. Like how did those first spells come to be known? You know, people experimented with it, and they found like, oh, okay, if I do this, that, or the other thing, then we'll actually have some consistent results. And so that's the idea, as far as I'm concerned, that would actually, allow us to kind of play fast and loose with magic of this. But anyway, that digression aside, the point is, they cannot achieve what they came here to achieve without taking at least one thing from this vault, which is that key. And so if they try to leave without this key, then the circle is going to be like, okay, yeah, you don't have anything, you're allowed to leave, that's fine. It's going to know that they're not dwarves, that they can't take anything, right? Unless there is a dwarf in there, in which case we'll just like, have it be like it doesn't recognize them as one of the living dwarves or something like that. I don't know. We'll hand wave it. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It basically, like, the magic will know whether you're taking something that belongs to you, right? Because of that cataloging system. Because it is kind of like the big giant bank or whatever. But it knows who has permission to take what out of here, and none of our players will fit that sort of pre-programmed set of allowed pilferers, permitted pilferers. And so because of that, we're gonna kind of force their hand. They're gonna be forced to trigger all of this craziness that's going to then force them out of there. And so what's fun about that is because they're gonna kind of reach that impasse, is we're giving them the opportunity to sort of have their own shopping trip, right? If they want to go in search of, a certain type of item, if they're like, oh, do they have like magical enchanted items or something like that, you can kind of just like, you'd have to wing it, right? And like be ready with your books, with your rule books as a DM you'd have to be ready to search up and find some stuff to give them, and you'd have to be ready to make sure that it's not too powerful or too underpowered. So I'm not gonna put the full catalog here. The concept is that the catalog, it includes so many things, and so you can just use DM discretion about like, oh, would it have this? If so, is it appropriate for my players? If the answer to is it appropriate to my players, then the answer is no, it does not have this thing. Oh darn, what a shame. But yeah, we're like giving them an opportunity to just sort of have this like wealth, this shopping trip where the commodities aren't food and toys, right? It's like way back in the day. Does anyone else remember? Am I the only one? Does anyone else remember back when? I remember it from Nickelodeon, but I feel like it was something that would happen on a few different channels and different networks for different reasons. But I remember they had like the shopping challenge, where it's like they would have a couple people and they would like plop them in a Toys R Us, right? And it would be like, okay, you have 10 minutes to grab anything you want off the shelves. It has to be like you get as many carts as you need, and you have to go and everything, if it's in the cart and back by the registers by the end of the 10 minutes, you get to take it home. And so they would like, blow the horn, and like everyone and like the people in the carts, they would like sprint off, and the dumb ones would like try to go up and down the aisles and pick one of the things that they wanted, and the smart ones were like, I'm going straight for the freaking Xbox section, and they would sprint over and they would just like pile it up with all the crap that they could sell to their friends later for huge profits, right? Like those were, does anyone else remember that? Am I the only one? Maybe I'm the only one. I remember those, and I'm imagining we're basically giving our players the opportunity to do that, where it's like, all right, you guys each have so many pounds of carry capacity, go nuts, and just let them like run around and have fun with it. Because my thought is like, when all of this stuff goes to hell in a handbasket, there you can either let them have an infinite amount of gold, which is fine, because if you're DMing well, then you're going to be isolating them from the opportunity to just constantly buy everything they need, right? And you're going to keep in mind what stores would and wouldn't have. So with them having a lot of money doesn't really matter. It just makes sure that they can buy up the things that they want that the cities actually have. And so you can just kind of let them do all that kind of stuff. And boy, oh boy, would that be fun for players, right? Like, I know my players would absolutely adore that type of thing. And I would too, as a player. Are you kidding me? I'd be like, okay, we have like this many minutes. Okay, my character has this much move speed. How big is this place? Where are the aisles here? And I would like start like really getting into the details to the point that people would hate me and they'd be so mad at me. But I would be sitting there and I'd be going through like thinking about like, okay, what aisle is this one? Okay, my player is going to want this, that, and the other thing. And we're going to go here and we're going to go here and we're going to look for this and we're going to look for that. And it's going to be great. I don't know. I'm getting way too into this description here. I need to back off this digression here. Point is, rows upon rows, players can go and find all that stuff. They're gonna get themselves in trouble because the spell thing is gonna be like, oh, and then calamity ensues, and our players have to climb out of a skylight to get out of the dungeon. Bada bing, bada boom. We figured it out. Now we just have to write it out. So what do we have already? Rows open to the vault. So this is we have a highly cataloged and organized vault system. Spawn rows of shelves span this chamber. Above each row is a placard. Placard. I always thought it was placard, but I'm clearly not. What is it? Okay, well, maybe I'm just like going insane. Above each row is a sign. There. Are you happy, OneNote? You've ruined You've ruined my desire to be a human thesaurus. Above each row is a sign that describes the general nature of the valuables to be found in each aisle. There's one that says, quote, assorted coins. We'll add the E to make it Old English. Ye old fantasy English. No. Assorted coins. That says assorted coins. One labeled. Not once labeled. One labeled. One labeled. Books and texts. And countless other categories that extend into the darkness of this chamber. And we'll let the players, so I'm going to put a little DM note here, and I'm going to just say, no, not quote, sorry, I wanted to do the parenthesis, there we go. Let the players wander and shop for a bit if they like. No rolls necessary. When they seem ready to get on with it, show them the aisle labeled unique treasures and relics. We'll just do that. And then we'll say, I'm gonna go here and we'll offer a description. As you look at the first few shelves of this aisle, you see an assortment of various things. Assortment of various things, we'll go ahead and do a colon. So like when I'm talking like ancient relics and stuff like that, they're various things. Actually, we'll just do this because it's like a narrative thing that I would read. There's a crystal ball on one labeled the Eye of the Mystic. I don't know, I'm just making up random crap here right now. Although, crap, if I'm giving things titles like this, players are gonna totally want like item cards for this. So I'm not gonna get that specific about it. So instead we're gonna say there's various things. So we're gonna go back to the colon idea. Crystal balls. Knives in specialized glass cases. A pile of rings. And pile of rings. And so much more. After wandering down the aisle a ways, you find a shelf that is apparently dedicated to various keys. Some are massive and rusted, others small and bejeweled. Some appear to be more like pegs of a specific size or shape than conventional keys. You suspect that what you're looking for is somewhere. It's not somewhere, it's just somewhere. somewhere on this shelf, right? So it's like we can kind of describe it like this is like basically I'm just trying to describe like, yeah, you probably found it. And then I'm going to again do another note here, a DM note. Don't force a roll to find the key. It's too important for them to be allowed to miss it. If you ever can, which you always can if you're a DM and you're doing homebrew things, never, ever, ever, and I've made this mistake before, and this is why I know and can say that you should be careful. Never, ever, don't you ever lock a story essential, a progression essential item or discovery or whatever behind a roll. Don't ever, if it's necessary for the progression of the story, either make sure there are multiple alternatives to achieving it, or if it's the only thing to achieve what their overall mission is, don't ever hide it behind a roll, because you do not want to trap yourself into this situation of, oh crap, that was where they were supposed to find the item and the guy rolled butt for his investigation and now they don't know what to do. How am I going to, like, what am I going to do? I can't just double back. Otherwise it's like, what was the point of the roll? In which case, that's where I'll say, exactly, what was the point of the roll? If they need to find this, right, your options are either let them continue to roll until they get it, or just give it to them. So I'm going to say, don't force the dice roll to find the key. It's too important for them to be allowed to miss it. Just let them search and maybe let them do opposing rolls to see who first finds the key. So it's like you can do something like that, right? Where it's just like who gets the glory of finding it. And we'll leave it at that. But yeah, just do yourself a favor. Don't ever put mission critical stuff, because it doesn't matter if it's a person, like if it's trying to strike a deal with a person, if it's trying to find an object, if it's trying to know the answer to a riddle or something, don't put it behind a dice roll. Don't do it. Don't put it behind something that complete chance can have the potentiality to lock them out of, because you really don't want to, because it either then you have to on the fly change the story and change the mission for them, or you have to sit there and admit that embarrassment of saying, I goofed up, I was not being a good DM, my bad. Which is like, it's fine, and that's an important thing to be able to do as a DM, is to be able to just like recognize like, oh, I made a mistake and did this. But that said, if you have the chance to make sure that you don't make that mistake because you're the one who's just writing the stuff and pre-planning it, don't do it. Don't do it. Just like let it go nice and smooth. That'll be better for it anyway, because then either you're going to have to make up for some reason a separate, completely unrelated shelf that will have the key on it for some unknown reason, or you'll have to let them keep on rolling until they succeed, and then again I ask, what was the point of the roll in the first place? So just, I don't know. I'll stop like, laying on that one, but I just cannot emphasize that enough. I cannot emphasize enough how valuable it is, or how important it is to make sure that mission critical things can always be found by players. So, somewhere on the shelf, and then we'll just go ahead and see here, and then we'll say, before long, you find a key placed on a small cushion on one of the upper shelves. Looking at it, you can see that it appears to match the size, the size and style of the key you found among the giants. Let's see here. Size and style of the key you found among the giants. It seems as though this must be the key you have been searching for. Boom, there we go. And they can have their big success. Like, hey, you found the key, you did it. It happened. Congrats. You did it. You know, that's when you do the like Legend of Zelda moment of the ba 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 as they like spin towards the camera and hold up the item in triumph. Yeah, that's when they get that moment. Because they found the key, they finally did what they wanted. And then the best part about it is they're going to think that, hey, everything's working great, because like that's not what triggers the trap that they will eventually be trapped by. So, all right, I think that's good. It's a lot of discussion and a lot of work to kind of get up to just like having these couple paragraphs written out, but this was an important part. And like I say, I didn't really have that fully clearly mapped out in my mind yet. So I'm glad we've got that, and now we just kind of have to. Now the next step is to describe how all of the magic circle and all that kind of stuff impacts them. And I think we've largely hashed that out. It's just going to be a matter of putting it to words, and so we can kind of work on getting it to be a sort of a strong narrative description of everything. But before we get into that, I do need to run to the bathroom. I'm going to take just a quick break, 1 or 2 minutes tops. Just, you know, sometimes nature calls, and you just gotta go handle these things. So I'm gonna run to the bathroom. I'll probably refill my drink while I'm standing, and then I'll be right back, and we will continue with what we were working on. And like I say, the goal today is really just to finish up this vault section and then maybe get started on the force section. So we still got plenty more stream coming up, and so feel free, so definitely stick around, and I thank you for your patience. Like I say, this will just take a minute or two tops. It does not need to be a long process, but it's a necessary one. So yes, again, thank you for your patience. I will be right back. I've returned. Thank you for your patience. I appreciate it. My bladder appreciates it. I've returned, triumphant and empty of bladder. Is that... That's not really how you would say that, is it? Empty of bladder? I don't think that really is how the language works. I don't think it would work. I don't think that works. But hey, you know. Anywho, I appreciate the patience. Let's get back to it. So, we have our description of this room here, and we've kind of talked about things. I'm gonna just actually put one note here. I'm gonna do one DM note here, and we're just going to say, well, no, I guess I already have it here. Let the players wander and shop for a bit if they like. No is necessary when they seem ready to get on with it. But they like, I'm just gonna actually add to it and just say, use DM discretion about what they find and can try and take. Right, so it's just like, you know, so if they're all like, oh, there's this ancient mummy sarcophagus, I'd like to take that with me. It's like, in what? In what, your mummy-sized pocket? No, you can't do that. It's just, you don't have the equipment for it. I'm sorry. So, you know, use DM discretion for some of it. But in general, I think that's good. Okay, great. So now we need to do, let's just do this. Let's just say exiting. Oops, I did not mean for that to be the color of DM notes. I want that to be solid black. Okay. Exiting. There we go. As you go to leave, you see that the doors have closed on their own. As you approach them, there it is. As you approach them, a circle on the floor. How do I want to say this? A circle carved into the floor begins to glow faintly when you walk over it. On the door are written the words. This is perfect. Are written the words. Leave with what is yours. Leave all else behind. Boom, there we go. There's something kind of poetic about that, right? Leave with what is yours, leave all else behind, right? So it's like leave and leave. I don't know. I think it flows well. I think it just kind of flows well. It sounds kind of old-timey and fun for the players to sort of read and hear. So I think that's good. But yeah, so we'll just kind of say that there. And we'll say, let's make some DM notes here. And what we'll say is, the circle is to detect whether players have anything from the vaults on their person, including the key that they came here for. If they open the door while holding anything from the vaults, a tunnel collapse will be triggered. Boom, there we go. Tunnel collapse will be triggered. I think here. Yeah, we'll say a tunnel collapse will be triggered. And then I'm going to go ahead and as you open the door, suddenly a violent rumbling begins to shake the world around you. Though no rocks appear to be falling on you, falling in you, at least none larger than perhaps your own fist. The sound of falling and collapsing. Whoops. Sound of falling and collapsing stone. Let's see here. I'll say. The sound of falling stone and collapsing stone fills your senses. The sound of falling and collapsing stone fills your senses. As it is clear that whatever is happening is not far from you. Boom, there we go. Hey, you know what? I consider it a compliment if my voice is soothing enough for you to take a nap to. I personally, as someone who has always struggled with, I don't know if this is a normal thing for most people, but I am just weirded out and do not like the sound of my own voice. It just, like, it sounds far more nasally to me on recording than it does in my own head. So when I hear my voice back, I always just think like, oh, what an irritating voice. So whenever like if you find my voice to be soothing enough for you to fall asleep to, then like I consider that a very, very nice compliment. I think a lot of people hate their own voices. That came out almost wrong. A lot of people hate your voice. No. A lot of people hate their own voices. I think that's pretty normal. And I think it's exactly because, and I feel like this is something that I've read somewhere. I think it's because, like, we get used to hearing our voice through our own head. So, like, we can hear and feel the, like, deeper, more bassy notes of our own voices. So to our own selves, our voices sound much richer and deeper than what they sound like to anyone else. So it's like when we hear anyone else's voice, we're just used to hearing that through the filter of air, right? And so we don't feel like there's anything missing. So we don't really have a problem with most other people's voices, but our own voice sounds much more, it tends to sound much more high pitched and nasally to ourselves than what it does like from in your own head, because you don't like hear and feel those like bassier notes that just kind of naturally happen with a voice. So I feel like I've read that somewhere, that that's actually a very common phenomena, but I don't know. I digress. Anyway, let's see here. Sound of falling and collapsing stone fills your senses, as it is clear that whatever is happening is not far from you. So we can just kind of do that, and honestly what I'm going to do is then we'll just do another DM note. We'll say you can pull up, or you can keep the stage 4 map up and describe for the players how falling stones will have closed off any route going beyond room. What room number was that? That was room 4. So it's like, you know, and we can just kind of leave that up to personal choice, whether it's like, whether that includes like whether the rocks have fallen like in here and forced them down through there and there, or if it's like this is really where most of the, like, really where the tunnel is blocked so they can't get from 4 to 6. And then just kind of leave that up to judgment, but basically we just want to describe that like this is as far as they can make it, so they have to try and find their way up there. So we'll say going beyond room 4. And then we'll say what we can do here is say within room 4. We'll say I'm going to do within room 4. We'll say the effects of the collapsing tunnels can be seen in this room. Can be seen in this room. We'll say much of the ceiling has fallen, and the floor itself has risen by up to 10 feet in some places. All exits leading further out of these tunnels have been filled, trapping you in this room. And then it's just like, leave it up to them to remember that there's like the skylight or something like that. Here's what we'll do. As a DM note, we'll say, let it hang, but if they are at a loss, drop a hint that the skylight is still present. And what we can do actually to do that is go boop, boop. And we can say, we can add some descriptions here. It's like, as you look up to the opening in the ceiling, it seems that some of the tunnel collapse has left the opening even bigger than before. And we can just kind of like drop that little hint there, and be like, yeah, guys, there's the thing. You know, you can always just go for a little climb. We can provide that little hint for them if they get stuck, if they're struggling to figure out what else they can do. And that's the type of thing, I talk about this a lot. It's very possible that they'll do exactly that they'll forget that that's there and not really connect those dots. Because the way I always describe it, like, and this analogy just works so well, and so that's why I parrot it all the time. Like, you might think that the answer is as plain as having written it in Sharpie on their forehead, but you have to remember that a person can't see their own forehead, and even if they look in the mirror, it's backwards, right? So it's like, you know, the point of the metaphor being, you might think that it's really clear because you already know the answer. But someone who doesn't know the answer and can't see it from your perspective will be unlikely to see it the same way. So that's why traps will consistently turn into things that it will consistently turn into things that just like seem insurmountable. Nightbot is being aggressive again. As it does. I have it set for I might have to turn off the all caps thing about it, because that one seems to be more harmful than good. It seemed like a good idea for managing bots that come in and spam or something like that, but I feel like that one just gets in the way more than anything else. My apologies. Oh my goodness. But yeah, let's see here. Anyway, I lost my train of thought because Nightbot decided it wanted to just bring the hammer down. Boy. But yeah, okay, so yes. So yes, the point is we'll be prepared to offer our players that little tidbit. Because even though it seems like a pretty obvious solution, like, hey, there's your way out, like, how pretty convenient how the collapse left this one room that has an opening available. You know, like, even though that's there, that it just might not come across as obvious to players as we expect it to. And it's always best to be prepared for that potentiality, right? It can always be a thing that players just do not catch on to what you're trying to describe for them. So, but I think with that, I think that finishes up this this section of this chapter. I think that leaves us only with the final component, which is then once they do exit through the skylight, their travels through the forest, that will then get them back to the city, that we can then sort of leave the dungeon portion, the dungeoneering portion of this chapter, and return them to sort of more role play type of things. So sweet. I'm really happy about that. I'm really happy about that too. We made good time on that. My goal was just to be done with this section by the end of the stream, and we got like a half hour left, so we can go ahead and I'm gonna have us dive into our next section a little bit here, which is fun. So we've already decided, yeah, let's do that. Let's do stage 5. So as I kind of mentioned, the next part of it, when we get to stage 5 here, the next part of it is traveling through the woods. Because if we pull up, I'm gonna pull up our map, just so we can kind of understand. So the tunnels are functionally going to take them. It doesn't really look quite right as far as distances goes. We're playing kind of fast in those distances, but I mean, what D&D game doesn't do exactly that? Because it's like, you know, it's kind of, it would be really boring if we always made it so that they had to describe how they travel every single mile, right? So, but basically, they travel through here, and we can see they're kind of embedded in the mountains. But at the foot, so Kagdaral is in here, and at the foot of the mountain that Kagdaral will be inside of, is a little valley that then leads to this lake, right? And so it's like we're gonna have them pop up somewhere around here, and within this valley, there's gonna be sort of like a forest, centered in a series of mountains. And so we're going to have them trek back through there until eventually, like, basically what we're going to do is we're going to just kind of leave it up to them. There's like thick forest and everything, and we're basically just leaving it up to them to recognize, like, okay, well, the city's to the south. We know if maybe there's another way into the city or something like that, and we'll have maybe even dropped a hint while they were in the city that they can see there are a couple different tunnels that, like, will eventually lead in or out of the city. But the idea is that if they keep going south, they'll eventually find, like at the foot of the mountain, an entrance to a tunnel that will then be just like a dark, empty tunnel. This one will be mercifully not inundated with all kinds of horrible creatures that they've already had to deal with. And that will get them back to the city, which they can then, you know, figure out depending on you know, on what terms they left the city in last. You know, they can contend with whatever they need to deal with. But yeah, so that's kind of what this last section is going to be. And I want to pull up the notes and I want to see. So we've already kind of picked out the enemies here. And we've got ogres and bears and giant apes. And the boss is going to be the giant ape. And I think I kind of had in mind that it would just be kind of funny, because we've been setting up this, like, really dark Lovecraftian tunnel monster horror type of thing, and then it would be really funny if there's just, like, for the end of the chapter, this sharp pivot into almost like a King Kong situation, where it's like they are going through these woods, and I kind of just have this idea in mind, and I feel like I remember discussing this like a long time ago when we were first getting started on this chapter. But I had kind of this idea. We kind of came up with this idea that these ogres, the half ogres and the ogre battering ram, right, are a group of ogres that are on their way trying to hunt this giant ape. You know, and like the cave bears are either wild animals or animals trained by the ogres, kind of like we would a dog or something. That's kind of the idea that I have. And that, you know, players can then choose to either fight the ogres or join the ogres to take down King Kong. Just like just as some sort of like random pivot, just to make things entertaining and fun for the players, you know. So it's really dumb, and it really doesn't fit with what we've kind of put in here, but that's part of why I love it so much, right? It feels like they just accidentally fell into someone else's side mission, right? Is what it feels like, and it really amuses me that they would just suddenly be in the middle of the situation and be like, what the hell is happening here? So I think I'm gonna stick with it because I really like it. And like the other thing about it too is I don't know when I think about the environment and the rest of the world and the rest of the places that the players are going to be traveling for the rest of this campaign, I don't know that there's going to be another opportunity for something weird like this, because they are going to eventually go into the forest. Like if we pull up our map, our really, we can pull up this map. If we pull this up, right, and we zoom out a little bit and bring it, see it, like the next section, they're going into the Siski Forest up here. They're going to go into this forest and they're going to deal with the drow, but this is going to be, like if we thought Cogderal was, you know, like Underdark horror type thing, we're gonna double down on that with the drow here in the Siski Forest, because like I kind of had this vision for the Siski Forest where it's gonna be almost like a Blair Witch situation, where the drow are, even though they're actively living there, are actively staying out of sight of the players as they arrive at the drow city at like Ashran Lore. Right there, when they get there, like the drow are going to keep themselves not visible, so the players are just kind of dealing with these unseen villains that are just sort of like throwing various horror themed like puzzles and challenges at them, while they're also dealing with these horrible nasty creatures that live in this very Mirkwood style dark always night forest. And so like the concept of just like a monster hunt isn't really going to come into play here. Like this section, I'm going to really want players to feel like they like my goal is, and this, it's going to get dark a little bit in here, and so I might have to temper it a little bit, but what's kind of been growing in my mind as an idea for this is like this is going to turn into a situation where they are going there to find the key, and I almost want to have them find the key immediately, and then the whole chapter devolves into this like horror Lovecraftian / slasher film style attempt to escape, right? And that's what the whole chapter is. It isn't them finding the key. It's like they go in there and it's like, oh look, the key is like right here in this old abandoned museum, just like we thought it would be. Like, great. And they grab the key. But then things just like slowly devolve in that horror movie kind of way where like, you know, things go wrong, people get separated, horrible things are happening, the way out is destroyed, the bridge over the river is gone, you know, and it just kind of keeps devolving and exploding into this like horrible attempt to escape is what I have in mind there. But the upshot is there's not going to be room for just like a King Kong thing. So I just don't know that there's going to be another opportunity to use this, and it was an idea that I had and I wanted in there, so we're just gonna like kind of force it in here. We're gonna ham fist that one in there. So that's what we're working on for this last section here. Let me check all of our notes here and make sure we've got everything kind of figured out here. For first off, what we can do here for these is we can go ahead and we need to put in, so for this we've got our half Ogres, and then for these guys we have our Ogre battering ram. Gosh, man, talking about it made me so excited to start working on the next section. Like I'm really excited to try and find a way to like, while the characters have better, because like the thing is about most horror films, I'm digressing so hard right now, but we already got done what we wanted to get done today, so we can totally digress if we want to. And when I say that, I mean I can totally digress if I want to, because this is my stream and it's on me to keep it focused, and I'm not doing that right now. But like the thing about doing like a horror film or a slasher film or something like that, it almost always relies on the characters being irrational, which you can kind of hand wave away because it's like in the face of a poltergeist or something, would anyone actually really be 100% rational? Or would they be instinctively terrified about the situation and desperate to get out? You know, I think the answer's pretty obvious there. You know, so like that's what a film relies upon, and our players, given the nature of how tabletop RPGs work, right? A lot of that time pressure to like make those instant decisions is kind of not there. Like you can artificially do it with like a challenge, like a skill challenge, right? Where you're like, okay, yeah, everyone has like, you have like 1 minute to decide what you do next, you know, and then you lock in your answer and then you make your roll and you need 4 successes before you get X number of failures, you know, otherwise it doesn't work. You know, so it's like you can kind of do that, but like in essence, even then, it's like players can kind of discuss and come up with a rational thing. So it's like, it's going to be the tricky part of doing that is finding a way to trap them even when they're making good decisions. And I think that's a really fun challenge, and I'm excited to try and figure out how to puzzle through all of that. I think it'll be a lot of fun. And I think, and it really, now that I think about it, it's going to turn into a very Resident Evil approach to things, right? Where it's like basically like the gate out is locked. And so like their first thing to do is like, okay, well, let's go find a key. And they go to do that, but then there's no key, but they find this one little thing that they need to accomplish, right? And so then they go to try to accomplish that, but then there's like this other thing in the way, and so they need to find a way to get that thing out of the way, so then they have to do that. So you kind of keep diverting them in this like long chain of fetch quests where it's essentially ultimately they'll get to the end and it's like, okay, you found object D to unlock door D, and behind door D is object C, which will unlock door C, which behind that is object B, which will then unlock door B, which then has object A, which will get you through door A, which gets you out of the place, right? So you kind of keep doing this like stepwise thing where eventually they've gone through this gauntlet of things to eventually find what they're ultimately looking for and be able to escape with it via that way. And so it's like we can take advantage of the fact that it's a city, and so there'll be like we can use different houses as different dungeons and places that they have to go, and each one can be its own sort of menagerie of horror, right, for them. And so I'm really excited to try and figure out how to do that, because I've never actually, like, I've always approached, I'm never afraid to add horror into my games. In fact, I really love adding that horror element to my games, but I typically will just do it through the monsters and the setting. But I'm really excited to try and invoke that feeling of just being trapped, because that's not really something that I've ever done. Like, it's pretty much every dungeon that I make, my players are always free to turn around and leave, but I want to, for that next one, take that option away and force them to essentially solve the problem, as opposed to just saying like, well, never mind, right? Like, force them to deal with it. And so I don't know, I think it's going to be really fun. I'm really excited to work on that section. And again, like, I'm digressing hard from what we're working on, but it's fine because we already got done with what I wanted to get done with today. I'm just so excited about it. I love writing and making games. Like, I don't know, I'm really gonna go off on a tangent on this one, but I really enjoy world building, and I've really come to enjoy doing it through the lens of making a game, because I was a world builder a long time before I was a DM, even before I played Dungeons and Dragons at all. I was a world builder just because I thought it was fun to try and create environments. But like the concept of making a game out of it and making it something that people can actually experience is so much fun for me. Like, and like for me, because what it is like, it feels like then not only have I fantasized and imagined and written down this world, but when I have people who are willing to play a game through my world, suddenly my world comes to life. And it is so much fun to watch this world that I've imagined to become as real as it can possibly be, right? It'll never actually be reality that we're in. But to see it become reality in the sense of you know, my friends, my players getting invested in it, and trying to survive or explore or succeed or whatever they're trying to do within my world, and seeing it sort of become real to them for just that time that we're playing. So much fun. I love it, and it's why I turned into such a geek and why I get so excited to talk about the things that I'm working on. It's just such a great hobby. I cannot advocate for world building and Dungeons and Dragons in general enough as a hobby and as a game to play with friends. Like, it is just the most fun collaborative thing to do with your friends. That said, being a DM is the least collaborative part about it, and you have to be prepared too as a DM. So the thing is, like, I love building this world for my players to go into, but the thing you have to remember as a DM is, and like, this is why being passionate about the world and creating a world that I love is so important to me. Because as the DM, the whole point, your entire role of the game is to lose. Like, as a DM, your job is to lose. You want to do it in spectacular fashion, and you want to make sure you only do it after your players have earned the victory, but your job is to lose. So as a DM, you will never get that satisfaction of the win, right? Your job is to lose. So you have to find your enjoyment elsewhere, and for me, that comes from just like, well, it comes from two things. One, world building and creating a world that I'm passionate about and that I love and that I care about. And then the other thing is screwing with my players and watching them struggle. Like, it's a little sadistic to put it that way, but it's true. It's true. Sometimes the most fun you can have as a DM is just watching your players flounder and, like, just kind of sit there and like, just, like, let your inner evil villain come through and just sit there and cackle as they're just, like, sitting there struggling, trying to figure everything out. And you're like, yes, dance, puppets, dance. So, I don't know. I'm really rambling here. Let's go ahead and let's do the final bit of prep that we need to do for this, so that way next time we can just sort of dive right into it. We've got our monsters figured out. We've already done the math about how different difficulties of combat are going to look, right? How difficult to make different combats and what monsters to use. We've kind of figured that part out. So all we've got left now are just some basic things to step through, and we've got 15 minutes, so I think that'll be the perfect amount of time to do this. First and foremost, I've actually fixed my template a little bit. It made, like, we've got it numbered, and I always end up making it so that way everything is numbered 1 through 10, so you can just roll a dice and get and see exactly what your what your random event is for when they take a long rest. Because I always have this random event table for a long rest, just so that way there's the chance that a long rest won't just be a free reset, right? It'll make it so that long rests feel a little bit more eventful and interesting for players. So we'll do that. 20% chance of an uneventful night. That's 2 out of 10. So we'll just copy that one and paste it once. And then Divine Intervention. This is I always like to have that there, because most players will choose like a deity or a divine entity, and I always like to do that to kind of give them little bits of foreshadowing and or clues to sort of figure out and navigate as they're going. But so we'll do that, and then we just got to figure out sort of what wandering monsters. I always set it to a medium battle, which in this situation is going to be 1,800 experience points. Whoops, no, there we go. So 1,800 experience points. If we've got, so that would be, so we could do 4 cave bears. So 4x cave bear. Just a potential combat for them to show up. It doesn't really matter what it is. We could do an ogre battering ram and like 2 half ogres. That'd be good. So it's like a hunting party or something. That'd be good. Gosh, my players are gonna like poop their pants when they when they see like the ogre battering ram and stuff. 1x ogre battling ram. No, battering ram, and then 2 half ogres. There we go. That's all we need. And just do that. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good battle. There's pretty good medium battles there. So hooks and side quests. Ogres as enemies or allies. Also that the ogres are aggressive and violent out here. But if players are crafty and have good rolls, maybe there's a chance of an alliance. Players help them hunt the ape, and the ogres help guide the players out of the forest. If no alliance, it's all just hostility. Yeah, so if players don't negotiate it, it'll all just be fighting and killing. And great. Okay, so we got our random tables there. We know our hook and side quests here are pretty straightforward. We've already got those in mind. I need to reach up here. I want to grab my dice because we are now going to just roll to see exactly what types of challenges and rewards are going to exist in each of these sort of rooms, not really rooms, but regions of the forest. The idea I have for this one, for this map here, right, we've got this forest and this looks like everything is really close, but my idea is that like any of these tunnels, normally these squares are like 5 feet, but like in between these little like alleyways, these halls in between clearings in the woods, like any one of these, like a square is more like a mile, right? So it's like, yeah, you go hiking through the woods for, a couple hours and suddenly you come upon a clearing. Okay, a couple more hours. Yeah, it's like maybe that one's only 1 hour because it's short. Things like that. Like that's the idea I have for this. Same with this one. It's like 1 hour or something like that. But just because I want that scale to be massive, but I don't want to try and create a map that's actually to scale with that kind of stuff, because that would be horribly inconvenient and it would probably crash the server when we're playing online. So, that's the thing about this one. But yeah, in each one of these we'll probably put some sort of danger and some sort of reward. So we're just going to figure out what type of thing is going to be in each room. So that way, on Monday when we start, when we come back to this and work on it a bit more, we will be prepared to just go right on ahead and proceed with putting up all the details here. And I think what's fun about this one is I guess the one thing I will say, there's one thing that I'm going to dictate here. Usually I'll let just like random dice rolls decide it because it just makes it a fun creative writing process to try and figure out why different things are different ways around there. But I'm thinking I'm going to put maybe room 8 here, just this one isolated clearing, have that be the boss battle one, because it's like, okay, they go there and that's where the giant ape has like made its, like, I don't know, King Kong nest or whatever. I don't know what a King Kong would do for bedding or anything like that. But we'll put that right there. So 8 is going to be our boss battle, but nothing else is really set in stone. So 8, we'll put the danger as boss battle. It's going to be a hell of a battle for players. And what'll be fun with this is what I was thinking with the boss battle too, is we would do, so like the boss battle needs to be 360 experience points worth of combat, right? Or worth of enemy. And so what we'll do is we'll do the 290 of the giant ape, right? So that's like, or roughly 3,000, and then we'll do all of it. The rest of it will be a hunting party of half ogres. So if players are on the same side as the ogres, it'll be a bit easier and the ogres will fight with them. If not, the players will have to contend with the ape and the ogres at the same time. And I think that would be really, really fun. So, alright, so let me see here. I've got my little cheat sheet with me here that I use to just cross off so that way I don't get confused about what I have and haven't added. I'm going to mark off the boss battle there. I need to choose some dice that we're going to use to roll today for these random things. And so I've got my big giant bag of way too many dice. And I'm just going to randomly pick out, close my eyes, randomly pick out. This one feels fun. We've got our little dandelion colored ones, our green and yellow. It's still trying to focus on my face here. See, look, it's so pretty. So we'll dig out the D10, 8, 6, and 4 of each of them, just because that way as I'm crossing things off and there are fewer and fewer options for what is available in any of these rooms, we can just pull out the dice and not have to like re-roll if we keep getting higher than what actually is going to happen. So, alright, so the danger in room 1. The dice have decreed that will be an easy battle, so when they are just popping up out of the ground, there's going to be some sort of easy battle for them to contend with, as will become the name of the game as they're going here. And then the treasure for that one will just be some sort of money or treasure here. So we'll say treasure. That's the reward there. Room 2. Okay, so this one I need the D8 for the danger because we've already got 2 of them marked off. So that's also going to be an easy battle. Easy battle. I really do enjoy just randomly assigning challenges and rewards in rooms because, like I say, it makes it kind of a fun, a fun creative writing challenge to sort of figure out, okay, what kind of reward exists here and why is it in this room, right? And so you can just kind of randomly do it and have to be creative to get your descriptions. This one is going to have a compass, which the compass, if you're unfamiliar, in my games I use the compass like they are used in Zelda games, where the compass sort of is an item that will help you know where to find valuable things within the dungeon that you're in, is sort of what I like to do with that. So, great. So the next challenge, next danger is going to be... that one's going to be a difficult battle. Hard battle. And then the reward will be... the reward... perfect. The one exception to everything having a reward. This one will be an empty area with no reward, just because, you know, like I say, there's value as a DM in screwing with your players, and so I do it plenty. So the challenge for this next room is going to be a puzzle of some sort. A puzzle. That's what you call a puzzle. A puzzle. It's a puzzle that just really isn't up to standards. It's a bit of a putz of a puzzle. It's a puzzle. I actually really like that. I'm gonna start using that. And then the rewards here is gonna be some sort of potions. Potions, master. I need your strongest potions. Can't handle my strongest potions. Alright, yeah, we are done with this dice. Now the next danger is going to be... that's going to be the safe room. So again, the exception, almost every room is dangerous, but I do offer them one safe room. One, to mess with their heads a little bit, and two, just to give them a bit of a reprieve. And then, oh wait, did I do that right? Yes, I did that right. This one is going to be... Yeah. This one is going to be the map. So, similar to the compass, the map works like in the Zelda games, where it will reveal where all of the rooms are for players playing online. That's good. Alright, and then our next danger is going to be an easy battle here. Easy battle. And then the reward for overcoming said easy battle will be some sort of lore item. Lore items may or may not have actual tangible effects, but I always put them in there just so that way, again, it helps the world kind of come alive, and it helps players become invested. It kind of relates to what we were talking about how long form games are better, and it's like you can't have a game that doesn't really have much lore, but that tends to make the world feel a little hollow and not super interesting. So this one is going to have a medium battle in it. Battle. The reward is going to be... the reward will be... this one will also have some lore in it. Alright, and we've already got the danger for that one, so now we just got to find the reward for that one. Which will then, in this case, be some potions. Potions master. Potions. Does anyone else know what that video is? I don't... It's kind of an old one from, like, the old days of YouTube, which, like, for me, YouTube first started up when I was in, like, middle or high school. I don't exactly remember when. So it was, like, the old days of YouTube were also, like, during my glory days of being a stupid kid that had time to waste on things like YouTube. let's see, this one's gonna be a medium battle. So I don't know if Potions Master is a video that still makes the rounds these days. It's hard to know. I feel like it's one of those videos where, like, if people dive down YouTube classic rabbit holes, it probably comes up pretty quick. But it's probably also not one that gets standard, like, curation to people. Okay, we're gonna do enchantment here. This is where I put, like, components for players to be able to enchant their own items and stuff like that. It's just a fun mechanic that I've given to my players. And because we're on the last stream, that means everything else is easy enough to figure out without any trouble here. So room 10 is going to be a trap, which actually makes perfect sense because room 10 is the exit to the forest, or the entrance back into the city. So it stands to reason that they would probably have the door a little trapped. So that way it's like, yeah, we can't just have any old person walking in. And then the reward here will put some treasure, which actually I'm immediately thinking will be pretty easy to understand and figure out, because it can just be like the body of someone who succumbed to the trap because they were trying to get into the city and it didn't work. So with that, we have all of our stuff planned out, and we can then just start working on detailing all of our rooms. We can start that on Monday, and honestly, if we make good pace, we might be finished with this chapter by the end of next week, which would definitely be pretty rad, and I would be pretty excited about that. Because like I say, it's not necessarily that I'm sick of this and I want to be done with this dungeon, but I'm really excited about the next section, the next chapter of this campaign, and the ideas that I've got for it. So that is really perfect, and I don't know that the timing could have been more perfect, because it is almost 1:30, which means it is almost time for me to switch over and do some video gaming. So good productive day, and it included a few rants and rambles, which is always my favorite. And it's good stuff. I'm going to bring us over to just chatting while I do my sign-off here real quick. So, bada boom, bada boom, bada boom. It's not really a sign-off. It's more of a little self-promotion blurb for anyone who is really only here for the D&D stuff. So with that in mind, I will say thank you so much to everyone who did stop by to watch me work on this stuff. I'm very fond of this campaign that we're working on, and I think it's awesome that people are interested in the stuff that I'm writing, but I also think it's awesome that people like to come in and ask questions and discuss DMing stuff like that, and just discuss the world of D&D in general. I'm really glad that people feel comfortable coming into my streams and talking about their experiences and sharing their ideas and stuff too. Even if sometimes I have to, like, brush over them for the sake of getting stuff done, right? Because I am still trying to, like, demonstrate things and do stuff on stream. I really enjoy that people come in and do that stuff. So it's I can't thank enough the people who come in here and watch what I'm doing and find joy in it and share their ideas and all that kind of stuff. It's just really great, and I have a whole lot of fun with it. But I am about to take a break. I'll probably take about like a 15-minute break just to rest my voice a little bit, and we'll come back and do some video gaming. But for those of you who are not interested in sticking around for the video gaming, or if you're watching the VOD on YouTube, just to give my little plugs on where else you can find me and everything, in the vein of discussing D&D stuff, I do have a Discord server set up. You can find the link. You can find the link to the Discord and to everything else I'm about to mention on my About page. On Twitch, or if you are watching the YouTube VOD, you can find it in the video description below. But I do have a Discord. It's a really cool place to share ideas about DMing, share stuff that you're working on, to get feedback. It's a small community, but it's growing, and I'm just hoping that the more it can grow, the more supportive and helpful it can be to people trying to get started in DMing and all that kind of stuff, and world building. And also, it's just a fun place to talk about anything else, like if you are part of the my streaming community here, and you really just like talking about stuff and getting the opinions that come up from the people who are watching the videos, it's a really good place to do that. So anyone's welcome. Get yourself hooked up with it. I try to be pretty active there. I also use it as a place to put put in announcements about, if I ever have to cancel a stream, or if I have to change my schedule up or anything like that. So if you're looking for a way to get sort of updates about what I'm up to, that's a good place for it. in the vein of updates and notifications and stuff like that too, I do have a Twitter. I don't use it for much other than announcements and updates. But if you want to have that as your way to get notified when I'm going live and stuff like that, or if I'm changing my stream schedule up, that's a really good place. You can find, like it says on the screen there, Envirus Streams is my Twitter handle. And hey, like if enough people follow me and enough people want me to, maybe I can be convinced to start using it for other things too. I don't know. People use social media. I'm not great at it, but I'm trying to learn. So yeah, go follow me there. You can also follow me on Instagram. So I oftentimes will mention other things I do with my life: rock climbing, kickboxing, having a cat with one eye. Just all kinds of stuff, like things like that come up a lot in conversation that aren't on stream, but people are like interested in that. So I'm starting to use the Instagram as a way to sort of share those types of things that I'm up to. And again, it's kind of limited in scope what I use it for, but hey, if people follow and people say, oh, you should do this, that, or the other thing with Instagram, I'm willing to follow the herd. So follow me on Instagram and help me learn how to be a funny man and an entertainer. There. Let's see. I've also mentioned it already, but I do have a YouTube channel. If you're not already watching this on YouTube, you can find my channel, my EnviroBoy channel. I put all my VODs up there, and I've been working on a lot of ideas of how I can better use the YouTube channel. I have in mind to maybe start doing sort of clip compilations and stuff like that from the streams, and so or like doing condensed versions of games, so that people that don't want to watch all the VODs but want to see some of the highlights of me going through a game. I'm trying to figure out how to be better, like how to do some video editing and how to keep track of better instances and funnier things that happen while I'm doing any of those streams. So I've got some ideas like that, as well as just some projects that like I would like to do on stream, but I think might work better in YouTube. So I'm trying to work through and figure out how to use that YouTube channel better. So if you have ideas for that too, things you'd like to see me doing on YouTube, join the Discord, leave a comment there, leave a comment on the YouTube channel, say so in the Twitch chat. I don't care. Let me know. And I am open to all kinds of suggestions. And then the final piece to all that puzzle is I do also have a donation page. I'm very new at all of this. I do not presently earn any money through Twitch or YouTube doing it, but to get projects going and stuff like that, sometimes funding is a very helpful thing. So if you like the idea of me expanding my stream and working on other projects, as of right now, you can make donations, and I will sort of just slowly collect up those donations. I will keep them in a pool, so that way once it grows enough, that pot grows enough, I can use that to get better equipment to improve my streams, do more YouTube projects and stuff like that. So if you want to help me out that way, I would be ever appreciative. But of course you don't have to. There are so many ways that you can support me. Right now, just getting followers and coming in and stopping and watching me stream is like the best thing that you can do, which is why I get so stoked when people are stopping by and watching me stream. So with all of that said, thank you again so much to everyone who stopped by. I appreciate you guys. It means a lot to me that people are interested in what I'm doing. I really do have a blast with all this stuff, and I have all these ideas to grow the stream, but the fact is, if it never does, if this just stays a hobby that I do for fun, just to share with people, I'm okay with that. Like, this is a creative outlet for me, and I feel very rewarded just doing it for its own sake. So I don't know, I'm having a lot of fun with this ride. Thank you so much to everyone who stopped by. Like I say, if you want to stick around, I will be doing some video gaming. We're going to do some American Truck Simulator is what I've been doing as my Friday cruise into the weekend game. But yeah, that's it. And then I guess the only other thing to say is it is Friday. I don't stream on weekends as of right now. I save that for time with friends and family when they're not working and all that kind of stuff. No more streams. This is the last writing stream for this week. Next week, though, as of right now, I will be holding my usual schedule. There's nothing getting in the way, which will be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Writing streams beginning at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. You can find all of the schedule on my Twitch page. But that's 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. That's when writing starts. Again, that's Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And those same days immediately after, at around 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time Zone, is when I switch over to video gaming. And I play a handful of different games. And we work on different parts of my writing projects and world building throughout the week. So yeah, stop by and check me out anytime. I appreciate whenever and however you watch me. It just means a lot. And yeah, I think that's all of it. So I'm going to take a short break. Like I say, maybe about 10-15 minutes, rest my voice a little bit, and we'll be back to do some American Truck Simulator. So I hope to see you there. If not, I will see you next week sometime. Whenever I see you next, until then, take care of yourselves, keep being cool people, and yeah, we'll be back soon. There'll be a little blip. I'm gonna leave you with some music right now, but there'll be a little blip when I switch it over for the sake of the VODs. And then after that, we'll be off and delivering some cargo. So I will see you guys there.